Hello, everybody. Welcome to our follow-up on our Rising Ruby retreat. I'm so excited, guys. I'm still in the aftermath glow of our retreat, and I actually got the booklet out today. I've actually had it sitting out because I thought Carissa's admonition and encouragement to keep it handy so you can be thumbing through it with such good counsel. And so if you haven't thumbed through it since our retreat, I would just encourage you to open it up this weekend because there's good nuggets in there and you'll be reminded and it will influence your thinking in a good way. But I just really quickly, as a way of welcome, wanted to remind us who we are as Rising Rubies. I know some that earn the retreat are already Ruby, already senior Ruby, Emerald, looking at Sapphire. But wanted just to remind everybody that we are on a mission to help more people and to remember that we're rising up as gems and jewels and diamonds. And so to be thinking in that direction. And it first starts in our mind, in the way that we think and the way that we work. So I just wanted to put that little reminder out before we kicked off into the meat of our call today. I'm going to kick it over to Carissa because she had a couple of really amazing prayer and thought options for us.
Yeah. And before I step into those, a little nugget that I took, you were talking about keeping this handy, right? And all those little nuggets. Well, a little nugget that I took that has influenced my thinking that I'm going to share here. Yesterday, several of us were passing around a call from Christina Williams and Michelle Stuchel on the topic of duplication. It's a quick 30-minute one, so definitely pop it in this week. So good. It's called the nuts and bolts of duplication. And I've already gleaned a few little nuggets that I'm like, oh yes, that's going to transform what I'm doing. But one thing that really struck me, she said, was your job is to make them doubt their doubt. There may not be anyone in their life who loves them enough to challenge their doubt. And I loved that. And I thought that has influenced my thinking. And that's a great little it's a great little way that we influence other people's thinking, is that we don't convince, but we challenge their assumptions. We challenge whatever it is they believe is the reason they can't do this. And we love them enough to challenge that, challenge their doubt. Our job is to make them doubt their doubt. So I really liked that. Just wanted to pass that along here. This week, I woke up before my kids and spent some time in listening prayer. And I had several teammates that I specifically wanted to pray and listen for. So I really challenge and encourage you all to take the time to think your thoughts, take the time to pray over your business, and take the time to listen in prayer over your business. I've been challenged by Brittany Howard in this while we study her podcast, because she said, experience is what you get when you don't get what you want, but wisdom is what you get when you combine experience with reflection. And I think so often we do not take the time to reflect on what's working and why it's working, and what's not working and why it's not working. And we're going to talk about some of that today. Sometimes it's just not working yet because you haven't given it 90 days of true effort at the volume it needs. And we're going to talk about that some with Charlotte and events. And sometimes it's that it's not working because it needs to be tweaked, right? And then also when something is working, we've got to reflect on what about this is working, and that's the stuff we want to do more of, or the stuff we want to recite, rinse, wash, repeat in new ways. So reflection, man, like obviously we don't want to stop our IPAs, but we can't be so laser focused on IPAs that we don't ever slow down enough to reflect. So I was reflecting one morning, praying over my business and listening on behalf of key people on my team. So God gave me a word for several people that I was able to send them that day. And also he gave me this just as I was praying. So I sent it to Megan, and this is what I want to pray over us on this call. And then I will put it in writing in our chat. And I hope that you can also pray it repeatedly. So I'm praying, but I'm also reading. So, dear God, you are a God of no lack. I confess I often operate out of self-preservation, fear, and scarcity. I want more impact in my business. I want to give others what this has given me. Bring the blessing and give me the capacity to steward the increase. How can I better steward the team you've entrusted to me for the present time? Reveal to me where my current stewardship needs refinement in order to be trusted with more. In Jesus' name, amen. So how can I better steward the team God has entrusted to me right now, today? And reveal to me where my current stewardship needs refinement in order to be trusted with more. I believe he's going to bring the increase. I believe he's going to give me the capacity to hold it. But he's also watching how I'm stewarding what he's given me right now. And this listening prayer is when God brings revelation. So when I pray, reveal to me where my current stewardship needs refinement in order to be trusted with more, that's one of those things that happens in reflection, in quiet, because that's when God brings revelation. So trust him to do that. And be brave enough to ask. Be brave enough to ask him to reveal to you whatever those blind spots are that need refinement in your leadership. I will pop that in the chat right here since Gretchen and Julia just hopped on. But y'all can go back, hopefully, and watch the first 7 minutes in the recording. We're glad you're here. Okay, Megan, kicking it back to you. You're muted.
Oopsie. I was just saying there's times in our businesses where we can feel unrest or frustration or just emotions that are not going to fuel what we want in our businesses, but can be very real feelings around, well, it's basically unmet expectations. Because I think in our book, in our model of how our businesses should we want them to grow or whatever, is like, the upward trajectory. We want an easy path. We want a fast path. We have in our mind what we want. And so when we don't get it, or at least right away, there's sanctification in the timeline of all of that. And so I would encourage you, one, to be mindful of the emotions, but also to double down in prayer when you notice those emotions popping up in your body, or whatever, the feelings, the thoughts popping up. Because, well, one, I think they can be good feedback, but also we don't want to always be operating from this feeling of angst, unrest, what is the word, discontentment. And I think there's a positive spin on some of that. Like there can be a good feeling discontent. Like when we came into Plexus, Justin and I were gratefully discontent. We're happy, thankful for the job that the Lord had provided for Justin at that time. But we were like looking for something else. And so I would just challenge all of us, including myself, to be aware of feelings like that and to battle in prayer against negativity, negative emotions, and not be constantly fueled by that. And there's a time to process that into whatever, but I think this continual frustration and then venting that's not going to produce the results that we want in our business. And so I am so thankful for those words, those prayers, Carissa, because there's beauty there. And I feel like there's peace when we can roll those cares onto the Lord, knowing that he sees, he knows, he hears, and he knows exactly who the people are that we are praying that he brings to us. And he can connect in miraculous ways. Seriously. I've seen it happen in marriages. I mean, we're fast approaching that age with our kids, just encouraging them to be praying for their future spouses. And they don't need to be looking under every rock for who they're going to marry. God, literally, the Lord can bring them, and to rest in that. And anyways, I think the same analogy can go for our business, or the same amount of trust in light of the who. And there's a character building in the process while we are waiting expectantly for that. So a couple of things I just wanted to remind us of is to be brilliant at the basics. And this business, I think sometimes we're like, feeling, or sometimes I have felt like, oh, what am I missing? What am I missing? And it's like always trying to figure out the next best thing or whatever. But it's really the 4 pillars that Brittany talks about. And I'm so grateful for just the focused 4 things: recruitment, duplication, retention, and leadership. And just going back over those and circling around the tree, recircling, right? And just really honing your skills in those 4 areas, because that's what it's going to take to get to the next level or to go diamond or whatever your next goal is. And so just to be practicing that every single day. And then the other thing that I was thinking, I know in our booklet, we gave everybody a printout of the ideal work week. And so I would love if you pop in the chat, if you filled yours out, and what popped up for you, what resonated, what you learned. It's really something that you personally will glean from. There's no expectation around it. Literally, there's no rules, and you shouldn't feel like, oh, I should, or I'm not doing it right. I'm not living my life right. Unless there's glaring pockets of time that you're wasting, or there was some sort of helpful awareness in light of where your time is going. So you may change nothing about your ideal week and the reality of what your week actually looked like. But there might be some of you that have a lot to change. But I wrote down a couple of things, and this was to encourage us to organize our life, our schedule, and routines to get done what we say we want. And I know that all of us have more than plexus in our life. We're, busy moms, teachers, in ministry or whatever, and have maybe you work full time or whatever. And so I wrote down, our plexus businesses need to be enough of a priority to move the needle forward, and to adopt the mindset of an emerald, or whatever your next rank is. Maybe that's sapphire, or maybe that's diamond, or maybe it's ruby, right? And so think through, like, well, what is that mindset? What is that work ethic? That's the other thing. And so I wrote down, what do I need to do? And what do I need to say? So my question, I guess, when I wrote that down was, do you know what to do? And do you know what to say? Like, or are there any processes in that you're unclear on? If there are, pop them in the chat. That might be some questions to reflect on also. And this is something else, is to look at your calendar and see how full it is. Because the thing that I do notice about teams that are growing, they have events that they're hosting regularly. And like Jordan Roddenberry says, when her points are growing, she notices that she is doing welcome calls with people. And I just think it's interesting that, whatever that thing is for you, go back to when you were in momentum and what the key things were that you were doing, and go back to that. And so I would love if someone are you guys popping in the chat what your ideal week showed you? If someone wants to unmute and we have time. If someone wants to unmute and share what they learned, I think that would be really valuable to the whole. Anybody?
I know when I did mine, Megan, it was ideal. Like I have a set schedule. So I'm like, mine is set, but then all of a sudden, some things like a birthday party just now, like it changes your dynamic, but you have to find that time again. I feel like things are always going to pop up, right? But valuing that time and putting that in there and putting it back is huge. So little things come and go, but that was the thing of like, oh, okay, that took about 2 hours when it took 2 hours of my plexus time that was supposed to be there. I went and just did all of that. So things like that.
Quick little nugget that I noticed was I can, usually get the stuff that I want to get done on a typical work day. I can usually get that done in like 2 hours. But I have noticed that 2 hours first thing in the morning or in the late morning versus 2 hours after I get my kids to bed at 8 o'clock is very different. Because in this month, I've been in a rhythm where I've been having to I haven't had to, but I've been putting that time in at 8 p.m. And what I find, I could get up earlier. But what I'm finding happening at 8 p.m. is Oh man, I see the things on my list, like I need to follow up with that person or do some customer care with that person or ask that person to post. And like my brain feels tired to do those things at 8 p.m. In the morning, I feel energized to do those things. And at 8 p.m., I'm like, oh, I don't want to start that. Like I literally don't, it's like my brain goes, I don't want to start something. Like if I send that message, then there's going to be a back and forth. And then I've got to keep messaging when I'm ready to go to bed at 10 or so like I like don't want to start stuff. And like that's the whole point of our business is go light some fires, go start some conversations. So it came up to for me like it matters where I put the time.
Mm-hmm. That is something to consider. There's times in your day that you will feel most energized. And so habit stacking or stacking the most important things during those times of your day can be really helpful. And, there may be sometimes like I was in a season with tiny babies where I could guarantee they were asleep if it was, 9 to midnight. And it's not my ideal time of day, but that's just what I had to do. And so I had to kind of mentally reprogram my brain when we were out of that season, because I don't love to work at that time for certain things. So that's, just an awareness thing. Gretchen, I was curious, you were saying something that you did your ideal sheets and you did thought cycling over your frustration, which has led to victory. Oh, and you're exercising again. Oh yeah, and you shared that at the retreat about the nooks and crannies for exercising, which I love.
I had something too.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at this, all these things are great things on my calendar, but they involve my children. And so the trade-off is mom spends my time with you here. You go to karate or you go to soccer, we're there 3 times a week or all the things. And so your trade-off is mommy's going to go work. You're going to go do the dishes for me, or you're going to prepare dinner, and it's just a trade-off. And it just has to be, because I can't do all the things and do it well. So I'm like, you help me with this. I'm helping you get to soccer, and it's just a teamwork.
Mm-hmm. I think communicating with our shareholders so they know, and I think even just instilling that concept of teamwork. And for those of us who have children at home all the time, or some of our children home all the time with us, there's just times of the day where we may have to communicate extra or re-communicate with them, like, this is what mom needs you to do right now, and here's why. Remember, this is how this is going to work. And so I think the awareness for me is how much I squeeze into a day and why my brain feels crazy. And I think the biggest awareness for me is that I have to delegate more and even be more specific in what I need help with. And when things operate better if I communicate my expectations. So like, for example, just for a practical example, if I'm going to hop on a call, like right as lunchtime is finishing, like 12:30 or 1, which is totally fine. I need the kitchen being cleaned. I need Abigail being laid down for a nap. I don't want to get off my call and have chaos. That is a recipe for me to not be nice mom when I get out of my office. Things don't work well. And so even communicating that to Justin, because he's home, sometimes working on other things, but when needed to communicate with him, even those specifics, like, babe. And so sometimes I think we have not because we ask not, or we have all this emotional drama, or things are just feel chaotic or out of order because I haven't done a good enough job explaining to my older kids what I'm expecting. And then if there's not follow through on that, then I need to have a consequence. But anyways, that's just.
I'll chime in a little story on that too. We talked about like hiring sometimes what we want to delegate or automate. And so, we encouraged that with y'all. And let me just pass this wisdom along. I've been hiring someone since I was about Ruby, and I've been in a season this year where I've had to find new people. Like my person I've had for 6 years is moving on in life. I came up with a super specific job description of what I wanted this person to do. We're talking 5 hours a week. This is not everything, but like you said, Megan, I got really specific about what I want help with. And then I showed it to my husband and said, look over this and help me make a wise, calculated risk here, because this is an investment. And so the layer that he added for me was, you should tell her what you want to see after 6 months. Like, what are you hoping that her role will create for you? And so I got pretty specific on that too. Well, we started her in January, and guess what? June is month 6. And I had been feeling like it wasn't going so great. And so early on in that relationship, I said to her, I really believe that clear is kind. So I'm going to communicate clearly with you. I don't ever want you to be wondering where we stand or if I'm pleased with your work. And she was like, great. And I was like, yes, and you can count on it. So then, end of May is coming in along. And I thought, I need to have some clear communication with her because we're headed into her 6th month. And I told her we're going to kind of review after 6 months. And so that felt uncomfortable. And I kind of was wishing that I had not made that promise, but I had a talk with her this week and I said, I am not feeling like we have hit our groove, and I'm not feeling like our weekday communication is where I want it to be. And so we had to hammer out some details, but I'm already feeling better. I'm already feeling like we're hitting on more cylinders this week. But it required that communication and that clarity and specificness. It required me to be uncomfortable. And I also, here's just one little tidbit about that. It's not so much related, but I had to recognize like I had written her a very detailed priority list of how to spend her time for me. And in that priority list, I had given like, and here's where you can find inspiration for that, or here's where you can find ideas for that. And it was just a very detailed page. And she had said to me in the last 5 months that was kind of overwhelming. Like she wasn't sure how to spend her time every day, and looking at that big detailed sheet was overwhelming. So what I had said to her was, okay, I want you to condense it to like 5 bullet points. And you just look at those every day, take that detailed sheet, condense it to 5 bullet points. Well, what ended up needing to happen in our talk this week was I just needed to condense it to 5 bullet points for her. I was that would not be hard for me. It would not be hard for me to take a 1-page detailed job description and condense it into 5 bullet points. It also would not have been hard for my previous person who I've worked with for 6 years. But I hired this girl because she is creative. She can make reels for me that I don't want to learn how to create. Like she can do lots of things for me, but that also means that maybe it's not super easy for her to think in terms of like assimilating information and condensing and editing it down to a super easy to understand daily checklist. That my brain works out like that, like nothing. So anyway, just to say, like, I was kind of feeling like she should have already known how to do that, and, you know, not have to take the time to do that, but I'm also paying her to think differently than me. So had that conversation, I literally wrote out like, is there something in Carissa's stories? You know, is it like giving her like thoughts to have? And it's been great. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there to piggyback off what you said.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Amber, would you be game for sharing? We're having a conversation recently, and she had some amazing epiphanies and did a creation cycle, which I'm so proud that she's taking the things that she is learning and has learned and just is applying them to help herself grow and be healthy. So I asked her if she would be game for sharing with us all so we can learn.
Sure. Well, first of all, I was super thankful to be able to be at the Ruby retreat, because that was just powerful for me. So thank you for letting me be there. So going through this creation cycle, I'm one of those people that you can't just give me something and expect me to believe it. So it really had to like work for me. So I was in this funk of being frustration. Like I was just been frustrated. And it was a couple of weeks and I was like, why am I I told Megan, I was like, I'm so frustrated. I mean, it was like teen stuff, graduation, all of that. And then what came up for me was, it was about this time last year, my runner who went Fast Start Gold quit. And I should have been Ruby in like June of last year. And so it's super frustrating for me because I have 2 runners now and grateful for them, but it seems to be like at a lull. And so I was like, is this going to happen again? Like, are we going to do this again where my runners are going to like fizzle out come May or June every year? And so I wrote down, my thought was, people always quit. And that produced, like, I was frustrated. And I know I wasn't showing up as well. I was like just going through the motions of going, okay, I did my IPA and I'm done. So I knew I had to get through that somehow. And so what I wrote down was, okay, my 2 runners have personal stuff. One is getting married in June. So of course that should be her priority. Another one has some family stuff she's taking care of. Of course our families are a priority. So I wrote down, this is my time to encourage them and love on them. And I need to pivot my expectations. And, they weren't living up to what I expected. And I mean, I know this is their terms, but like it was all my expectations. And so that was causing me frustration. So I decided I needed to pivot. This is my time to love on them, encourage them, be there for them, and not only be there for them when they're producing or doing the things. And so that helped me so much. Like that was such an epiphany for me. I was like, of course. And then just the other thought was my Emerald team, like I think somebody shared this, my Emerald team hasn't been recruited yet. And so that has sparked excitement and boldness in me again. So those are 2 things that are helping me currently.
Love that. I think when we were chatting about this, the thought or the little sentence where you said, I haven't recruited my Emerald team yet, that is significant. And I think all of you need to write that down, because what you have now is going to look different, most likely when you go Emerald or when you go Sapphire or when you go to your next rank. And so don't be afraid of recruiting outside of the current team you have, because like sometimes we, hyper focus on the chickens that we have or the chicks that we have, and we don't think outside of them or whatever. And so that also direction to, okay, get them rolling. Now I'm going to go get some more. And I love that gives you a feeling of excitement and like hope and possibilities and, faith that there will be other people that help to pull the train also.
Definitely. Yeah. I felt like when I was thinking, I haven't recruited my Ruby team yet, like that didn't sit well with me. I feel like I have my Ruby team. I mean, and I feel like it will get there, but it's my Emerald team. That's the one that kind of like sparked the excitement for me. So it's funny how a word does that for you, but it did.
And when we did our coaching call, he was like, I'm just feeling so frustrated. I'm like, okay, well, let's get it out on paper, because it's usually not 35 things. It's like 3. And so if that is not a habit of you guys, when you notice yourself feeling frustrated, is pop it on a piece of paper, just brain dump it and get it written out. And sometimes, like Carissa said, have your husband take a look at it and be like, help me find solutions. Sometimes it's solution or, task oriented or a delegation thing. Sometimes it's like, okay, we need to have a heart-to-heart with teenager, or I need to evaluate why I'm frustrated over these runners that aren't meeting my expectations. So yeah, healthy practice to keep practicing.
Yeah. And one of my giftings I feel is encouraging. So I'm like, why would I not go to that first? Why would I go to like productive? Like, of course I should be writing them notes and encouraging them. like that's one of my strengths. So it was just, thank you for making me work through that.
Good stuff. Cassie says, God is radically changing my business. Ooh, very good. Love it. And he's radically changing us in the process, because we're being refined as well. I did see
Charlotte is on. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm really excited because Charlotte went Ruby last month, and I always have my eyes on people who are ranking up because they did some things to make that happen. It doesn't happen by happenstance. And so, Charlotte, we want to hear, I know you did a little video for us, and I'm so grateful for that. But I've been chatting with your mom and hearing some different things. And I would love for you guys for you to just share with us just a quick little snippet of what you have been doing to spark momentum on your team and what's working.
Hi, well, wonderful, thank you. So what's really been changed a lot is that I was kind of just doing like direct messaging people to try to get signups and posting, and then maybe we would do like a 15-minute messenger event once a week or once a month, maybe a Zoom call once a month. But I really scaled it up, and we've been doing between 4 and 6 events per week. And we have an exact script. So we take turns doing it. And I kind of linked arms with my sister, who's my upline, and my mom is my sideline. And then we just take turns and bring our leaders on to do it with us so that we don't all have to be present for every call. We try to offer, like tonight after Real People, Real Income, I'm doing a late call for us people in California because I got to get all the time zones, and having a late call for the moms who are done putting their kids to bed, and then they can get on that call. If you have enough times available for people, they run out of excuses to not come. And they're like, okay, fine, I'll come. So I've just really been trying to do that. And also I've been doing the 27 Laws of Leadership book, the workbook portion, not just the regular book. And I've been filling it out and really taking all the tests. And
Are you talking about the 21 laws of leadership?
yeah, I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I missed
I just didn't want to, I was confused. Okay. Sorry.
Yes, 21, sorry. And really realizing that I can't do it on my own, even though like I want to be on every call, because I'm like, well, what if they don't say it like I say it? Or what if they don't do it like I want them to do it? Or nobody shows up because I'm not there, and I have to like chill and trust and let them make a little bit of mistakes if they want to, and that's part of growing. And when things go wrong and somebody doesn't show up or has to cancel at the last minute, I just tell myself, pivot, don't freak out, pivot. Like, what can I do now? And I don't dwell on whatever's going wrong. And I've started building like trust with myself that, sometimes people sign up as retail instead of signing up under the person they're supposed to. But I know I don't have to freak out because Carissa's always got my back and things like that. I'm like, okay, I don't need to freak out and freeze. Stuff's all going to work out. And if once in a while nobody comes to our Zoom call, I turn it into a training, and I just do like a quick 15-20 minute power hour. Let's just send a bunch of messages real quick and then go be with our family. And just a lot of it has been my mindset. Like when I feel frozen, like, oh, this isn't working, I think this is part of the up and down, and it's going to be good again soon. You can only have so many like people say no or turn off their order or whatever before it goes back the other way. So that's kind of what's been going on lately.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And yes, these are Zoom calls, right? Not messenger events.
Yeah, we kind of paused on the messenger because we did get good results from that for a while, but we started getting 50% sign up rate on the Zoom calls. So I'm like, well, since this is working at the moment, let's like go with what's working. I think there's nothing wrong with the messenger events. It's just sometimes when your phone is open, you just get distracted with another text, or you start scrolling and then you forget, and then there's so many posts and then it's over and you're like, oh, I'll look at that later. But if I have them on Zoom and I can see their eyeballs, I'm like, I kind of feel like I have their attention a little better.
Mm-hmm.
And they can hear my voice and my excitement. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that works pretty good.
Yeah. Well, and I wanted everybody to hear from your voice what you're doing to get your team in momentum or continue momentum. And when I was taking some notes with what you were saying, because these are some key leadership things that you are doing. And so I wrote down a couple of things. So you are delegating. That is a hallmark of leadership. You're pivoting when things go a different direction than you were anticipating. You make it work. You figure it out. I love how you're making it convenient for them by having several different time options. I love that. And I think that's something that we have been willing to do, is kind of be on call in our Plexus business. I mean, obviously there's times where you just have to shut it off, put the phone away, whatever. But in high momentum seasons, we have to be willing to serve and sometimes do things that are not at convenient times in order to serve more people. And so I resonate with that, because sometimes I see people are like, nope, I'm only available at noon for 30 minutes. I'm like, well, if you want to be diamond, we might have to be a little more flexible than that. But also, I love that you're investing in personal growth. You're intentionally working on yourself by reading the 21 laws and taking the tests, because that is the art of reflecting on your own leadership skills and helping yourself grow in that area, realizing that you can't do it alone, and the trust level. I think that's huge, especially when we're learning to delegate and raise up other leaders. And one of the thoughts that I practice when things don't go the way I want them to, because I'm by nature very perfectionistic. So if it's not done perfectly, like, I get all, crazy, at least drama in my brain. And so I pivot quickly and I say, that's the way it was supposed to happen. And that just jars my thinking to be willing to pivot and think of another option, right? So the retail customer that signed up, okay, well, that was what was supposed to happen. I guess we'll upgrade next month. And then I like how you don't fall into a puddle of, oh my word, no one came to my Zoom. You pivot and you just make it into a training or a power hour. Like, that's so brilliant, so smart. And I think it's interesting how you're aware of what's actually producing results for you, and you're not just continuing to do the messenger bent because that's how the way we always have done it, but to be willing to look at, okay, which one is actually producing more fruit? Let's roll with that one for right now. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of those things that you mentioned. Gretchen, I have the template for the Zoom event, and if Amanda hasn't put it in the Momentum Makers group, she's going to. So we can, share that with everybody.
I gotta hop off because I'm actually at work, but it was great to see you guys, and I can't wait to watch the replay.
Yes. Mwah. Thank you.
Bye.
See you at convention. Oh, Julia had a question for her about what her daily schedule looks like because she works. Carissa, are you privy to that?
Oh my goodness. I think that she and her mom like to do early morning power hours together on their work days. And then they've got their evening events that they're doing multiple evenings a week, but they're, 20 minutes. So they're not necessarily having to alter their whole schedule around it. And then I think the really key thing is, like, when you have an event like we have tonight, you're wanting to get people there who you want to expose them to the business and get them in for the business. If you make a list of the invites that you want to do, then she's just inviting whenever she gets a window throughout the day. And then you just highlight their name off the list and you just send those voice messages out. So I think nooks and crannies for where you need it, and then find those protected 1 hour blocks where you can for the more focused work.
And I think with even sending invites to the green lights, like that's an amazing way. Like, I have absolutely no excuses when we have the green light option just to like blitz out. Cause sometimes, you have a crazy day and it's like, I haven't made a list of who, but those green lights are always shifting and changing. So any non-Plexus people, I always feel like those are fair game for a message. But I thought it was interesting also that she said she was working her business basically from a place of tons of DMs and posts, and she pivoted to make more of a focus on events and where you're getting in people's spaces and seeing their faces and also adding value. And so I don't know, I just think it's interesting that maybe if you're doing lots of DMs and lots of posting, maybe you shift a little bit and put more of your time and energy into just doing these 15-minute Zooms and see how those produce fruit for you. There's a lot of value in getting in person or face-to-face in a Zoom with people.
Megan, do we want to throw some of our questions out there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Time for that.
Okay. So we had a couple of questions for this group. And so for the next couple of minutes, it can kind of be open up to some coaching, really. if you just, aren't necessarily breaking through when you journal your own creation cycle with a certain area of frustration or a certain thought, take this opportunity. And it doesn't even have to just be me and Megan. It might just be some others on this call that are able to, like you, I loved how you said, jar that thought a little bit. So, questions I have for discussion. I'd love to know what's one nugget from the retreat that has stuck with you and impacted your actions in the last 3-4 weeks since we've gotten back. One nugget, maybe something someone said in a session or commenting on a session that has stuck with you and impacted your actions. I would love to hear how that has impacted your actions. I would be curious to hear whose story at the retreat surprised you and shifted your perspective on this business. Right? Like we sat around and everybody shared how they got into Plexus, how and why God led them here. Did anybody's story just kind of like surprise you and shift your perspective? Specifically when it comes to sharing this opportunity with people? I think we could all say for Rita, for sure. So I'd like to hear that. And then this one came up with my team. You found yourself feeling motivated by or demotivated by or kind of neutral about the leaders retreat contest. Because I was starting to perceive a pulse from my team, and it was a really interesting division where I counted like maybe 5 people that I felt like were on fire, like so motivated by this contest. And then I felt like there were some who were actually demotivated, like they would be working harder if the contests weren't happening. I could really perceive and pick up on that like the contest was actually like I think they like wished it wasn't happening. And some were just like neutral, kind of like the contest is there, but my vision is sort of separate from the contest, and I'm working hard, but I'm neither motivated nor demotivated by the contest. So curious about that. And last one is, what thought pops up when you think about convention with your team this year? Convention with your downline. What thought pops up? Be totally honest. What is it? And these are not in any particular order. We just kind of want to discuss them, with what maybe stands out the most strongly to you.
I'll go. I am bummed about the convention because I don't want to say because I only have, but I know Jack and Jill, their mom and son, and they're coming, and that's exciting. But I really wanted some of my new folks to be able to come as well. But so far, it's not working out. So,
yeah,
bummed is my word.
Yeah. Have you spent much time exploring that thought?
No, but I probably should, right?
Well, I think, we don't have to go straight to should, but I resonate with it a little bit. I feel a weird bummed sense about convention. Well, although for me, actually, it's split. I have like pockets of team I'm really excited about with convention, and then I have a couple of people that I'm really bummed that they're not coming this year. But feeling bummed about it, for me, I'd love to know what your creation cycle is on it. Feeling bummed about it for me has made me procrastinate, sitting down and thinking about like a convention gift or a team event that I want to plan. Like I do want to plan a team event, but then at the same time, when I'm like, okay, I need to sit down and plan that team event, my brain's like, oh, bummed about coming, like, so you kind of go, I don't want to do that right now. Anyway, so for that reason, it might be valuable for you to take it all the way through a creation cycle and decide, how do I want to feel about the team I have coming? And then how do I want to be operating from that thought?
Definitely. And one of the girls that can't come because she's getting married. And so she's like, but next year I'm coming and my husband's coming with me. I was like, oh, I told her, like, I love that you have that vision for next year that you want to come. make it a thing. So
Why
Just
is it
gotta
the best thing ever?
Yeah.
It's an Emily Gibson question, but sometimes I
It's
use
like-
that to jog my brain a little bit. Like, well, the people, well, and this is the other thing that I think about in-person events too, because it is always such a toss-up, like who actually ends up coming, because you always have the yes, I'm coming and they don't show, or the maybes and they don't show, and then, you know, the no's and then the no responses. But the people that are meant to be there will show up. That's a
Yeah.
thought to practice.
It's killing me because it's like 2 hours from me. So all of my people are local to Nashville.
My word.
Yeah, they should be there. So that's another, like, I'm just going, okay, there's no excuse to not be able to drive down for Saturday. Like, it's
Have
a
you
2 hour
offered them
drive.
that?
Do what?
Have you offered them that consideration?
Yes, I have. I said, you could even come to my house, spend the night, we'll drive down together, whatever. Like, so that's where I'm like, frustration, right?
But if you've like offered them that option, then I feel like your job is done. Like you have offered, you've followed up, you've reminded them that there's still room for you and we'll miss you. I think it was helpful for me to hear Genevieve just pop some quick reminders, and like convention registration is not closed. It'll be open all the way up till the day of. People can walk in and register. And so if something changes, and that's what I usually leave it at with people who are like, oh, no, you know, whatever excuse they have, I'll just say, well, if something changes, you can register at the last minute and come.
Oh, okay, that's good. I'll say that too.
Mhm. Who else has something? Did any of those questions resonate with anyone else?
I was gonna say something, and I unfortunately didn't get to actually be at the Ruby retreat. I'm really bummed about that, but it's just the way that the weekend fell. So, but one of your questions, Carissa, it was talking about, gosh, we got on a convention, and now my mind is all on convention.
I can pull
What
it
was
back.
the
if you
one?
need it.
It was the one right before convention.
Have you found yourself feeling motivated by, demotivated by, or neutral about the
Oh,
Leaders Retreat
yeah.
cruise? And let's discuss.
Okay, so that one was the one that kind of sparked my thought, because I don't feel like I'm demotivated, or I do feel like I'm motivated by it for sure. But like some of my thinking is trying to keep my brain from going into the mode of doing it for selfish reasons. Like I
Ooh.
always am like, no, let's not get, like, I'm doing this. I really want all these people to go because I want the extra points, especially. But then I'm like, okay, but if this truly isn't the right time for them, like I don't want to pressure them into it because that's what's good for me.
Sure.
So I find myself going back and forth sometimes with some of that, but I definitely think it's motivating for me.
Good.
But
I'm actually super excited to hear that. And so I want to hear other people's perspective too, but I'll chime in a bit of perspective because I was coaching a team member in March who had some enrollments and was calculating how many more they needed to get the iPad. And then she told herself, oh, but I can just buy myself an iPad. If I really want an iPad, I can just buy myself an iPad. And I pointed out to her that sometimes, well, it's really not. It's not about the iPad. It's not about whether you can get one or buy one. It's about showing people what's possible for them. So you getting to go on this free cruise, or Jessica getting to earn a Lexus, which was something she did not care about at the time, like a nice car, she did not care. She was like, she would brag about how she bought all of her clothes at Walmart clearance. But sometimes what it is, it's about showing people that they can have that thing too. So early in the call before you popped on, one thing I prayed was, I want to give others what this business has given me. And so maybe there are some people out there who don't get to go on vacation. It's shocking and sad how many people don't get to go on vacation. Chris and I talk about this a lot. Like some people just have their 1 week a year that they can even be off work. And for their 1 week a year, they really can't afford to do anything but drive to grandma's. And so it may be that you getting to go on a Bahamas cruise is not selfish. It may be that you are the thing that you're getting to experience as a wonderful, fun perk of this business and your hard work is something that you can turn around and give someone else who never gets to go on vacation. So allow your brain to roll that around a little bit and think about like every single luxurious, extravagant thing you get from Plexus is something you then get to turn around and help others have. And that's pretty cool.
It's interesting because that thought that she was choosing was letting herself off the hook. Really, if she said that she wanted to go after that goal, or, when she truly dissected it, she was like, well, I don't really want it. I can just go buy myself one, which is not the point. But interesting note that sometimes our brain will go into self-protect mode because, outside comfort zone feels scary, so interesting.
On the convention note, I am very excited about convention because I have a pretty good group of my people coming this year. So I'm really pumped about that.
Cassie, you've made a comment about actually finding their obstacle, finding their objection, and you referenced that call from Christina. I referenced that call at the beginning too. So, really powerful. So the idea of like, do not co-sign on their limiting belief. When you say, girl, I get it. You're busy. You're getting married. No, we're not going to pull in that example, Amber, but when they say, I'm just so busy, I can't come, and you go, oh, I totally get it. You might as well have just said, you're right. You can't do it. You can't do this. You don't have time. And so Christina was saying, I have just decided I do not understand or agree with their objection. And whatever their objection is, she's immediately thinking about why that makes them so great. So her busy person, she said, well, great. Then that means you're an expert at getting things done and prioritizing your time. And I am confident that I can help you prioritize this thing and that it will be worth it. And I thought, ooh, that is so, so good. And that doesn't mean that we can always pull them over to our way of thinking. But again, it's not about convincing. It's about jarring that doubt in their brain and causing them to doubt their doubt.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's an important skill to learn as leaders, because I think when I started, I was conversations made me uncomfortable. And especially if I didn't agree with the person, or I thought they were giving up too soon on themselves, or they told me no because of XYZ reasons, like they weren't even going to try Plexus or whatever, I would just agree with them. I'd be like, okay, no worries. See ya. But now I challenge isn't the right word, but I offer them an alternative perspective while I seek to resonate. So that whole feel, felt, found method works well. And it's not like you're just putting out a seed, you're planting a seed for them to consider an alternative perspective. And so get good at getting curious, not in a threatening way, but just, hey, I totally get it. Like, been there, done that. I feel you on that. However, here's another thought I had. So, that's something to work through as we work with people, right? Potentials or people on our team or whatever.
I also think that when somebody rejects the, thing we put out there, we don't want to hear more about it. Like, what was it? Oh, our medical professionals call. I invited my kid's doctor. And her husband is also a medical professional. So I created a thread with the two of them. And I touched back several times when they ignored my first invite. So like, finally, she came back with like, hey, it's really great what you guys are doing, but I am just not interested in selling anything whatsoever. Well, I think our human nature is to be like, okay, cool. Because you really don't want to hear any more about why they feel that way, right? Like I don't want any more information about how you don't like what I'm doing. You wouldn't want to do what I'm doing. But, the way you approach it, Megan, and I feel like I've used this in so many conversations since then, is that very non-threatening, like, ooh, interesting, super curious, more of your thoughts on that. Right. And our human nature is to avoid hearing more of their thoughts on that. And we know, right, that they don't really respond super favorably when we go, oh, would you please share why? Because they know that we're trying to block their objection. But if we open ourselves up to like, interesting, okay, I'm super curious to hear more of your thoughts on that. Well, we are putting ourselves out there more. We are opening ourselves up to, it might sting a little, what they say, but it is less threatening, and we usually can uncover their objection.
And it's obviously, I'm in certain conversations, I may be more choosy about who I pursue that with versus not, so.
We've got a couple more minutes. If you guys need me to repeat any of the questions again, what is one nugget from the retreat that has stuck with you and impacted your actions in the last 3-4 weeks? And whose story at the retreat really surprised you and shifted your perspective on this biz?
I've got nugget and story. My nugget was actually from your session, Casey, about the web and all of the, discussion that went on after that, which was so helpful. Really just reaffirming that piece of building and rebuilding our webs, putting in more strands, new strands, because I've known for a while and have really dug into this year. I had a little thought epiphany that I'm going to share with you. That one of the things that I can do for my team, I'm not phrasing this well, but is to recruit new level ones. Because we've talked about, how can we serve our teams? How can we, do this for our teams? That's something that only I can do that is helpful to my team. It's not just for me. It's bringing in new blood. It's bringing in new excitement. It's modeling. It's, all of these things. And that was just a new thought, because I felt like I'm either spending this time working on me personally, or I'm helping my team, and realizing that recruiting is helping my team too. So anyway, it was just a reconfirmation of the fact that I need that recruitment focus right now. The story that stood out to me was actually what Tamara shared about having some, I believe it was diamonds, that she met in groups, that kind of gave me new hope and new inspiration for, connecting with people in groups, paired with, I don't even know who shared this, but saying that when they're in groups, they will ask them a question. They'll do it in private messenger, and they'll say, hey, I sent you a friend request because I wasn't sure if you'd see my message. That kind of gave me a new way, because friending people from groups is kind of spotty. So it was just a new way to take those groups and turn some of those people into friends and connections. So those are 2 thoughts.
I'm over here trying to type a response to Julia, Megan. So maybe I'll just say it out loud. That's easier, and then we can close out. She said, can you type your response to your friends not interested in selling response? So the first thing I wrote, and then I'm in the middle of writing this next piece, just the Megan Goff, we'll call it the Megan. Ooh, yeah, super interesting. I'm curious to hear more of your thoughts on that. Just open yourself up to hearing more. And then I also remember I did some feel, felt, found. So just, again, resonating, not necessarily co-signing on their limiting belief, but yes, I absolutely resonate with that. I felt the exact same way. I never wanted to sell anything. And it's been the biggest surprise how naturally that skill, or just how naturally those conversations can happen in my spheres of influence and in my day-to-day life. Like, I'm 8 years in and I'm into a selling career now. And I remember thinking I hated selling. Well, the surprise is I love selling. It is super fun, especially when, when you're getting results. And it's fun helping other people experience that too. So I don't think I went into all of that detail, but I said I felt the exact same way. And it's been the biggest surprise how actually fun it is. So I didn't get that typed out. Okay, well, it's 4 p.m. Megan, do you want to tie a little loop around it for us?
Well, I wanted to give you guys some homework. So your homework is to get a minimum of 5 teammates on this real people, real story, or sorry, real income, real impact call tonight, and to message 5 scary dream teamer type people to invite them to the call. And I will say that Jessica kind of will randomly pop up like, hey, message 2 dream teamers, invite them to the call or whatever. And that has proved fruitful for me. And sometimes there's people that come into our businesses for a season, and that's totally fine. But I did that a year and a half ago. I just randomly messaged a girl I had met at a conservative women's luncheon that my dad invited me to and said, Chelsea, I think you'd be good at what I do. Are you open to having a chat about it? Like phone call. And she's like, sure. and she said, yeah. And we worked together for a time. And I don't know if she'll be back, but I just want to challenge us ourselves and to stretch ourselves to, even if you have company at the house like I do right now, go message the 5 people, you can do it. And if you haven't done your ideal week, go do it. And then listen to that call that we popped in the chat, because there'll be some good thoughts that stem from that. We have 7 days left of May. So plenty of time to make some amazing things happen. Remember, for earning the retreat, we're encouraging a minimum of 3 to 6 level 1s. 6 really needs to be our goal. There's still plenty of time, and just get creative and making that happen. Okay, guys, thanks for hopping on. This was so fun. We'll see you all soon.